He took £1,200 from me, lied to my face about why, and then sent me a bill for 400 more. And here is what I want you to know before I tell you a single detail of this story. There is a piece of evidence at the center of this case, one document discovered at the worst possible moment that changed everything. I'm going to tell you what it was, but not yet. My name is Daniel. I am 31 years old. 3 years ago, I was working as a junior project manager in Manchester, renting a one-bedroom flat on the second floor of a Victorian terrace in Ancoats. The flat smelled of old radiators and fresh paint. The carpets were a thin industrial grey. The sash windows rattled when lorries passed below. I loved it. It was mine. Or it felt like mine. That is the particular cruelty of renting. You treat a place like a home. You give it your habits and your furniture and your smell, and then someone with a key can take it all away. His name was Marcus, my landlord. He owned 6 properties across Manchester and drove a silver BMW. He never seemed to park legally. He was polite the day I signed the tenancy agreement. He would not be polite at the end. I moved in on the 1st of September. I paid a deposit of £1,200, the equivalent of 6 weeks' rent, and received a receipt. I kept that receipt in a folder in my desk drawer. That folder would matter more than I could possibly have known. The tenancy was for 12 months initially, then rolled into a periodic arrangement. I renewed twice. I was a good tenant. I paid on time. I reported maintenance issues promptly and in writing. When the kitchen tap started dripping in January of my second year, I emailed Marcus on a Tuesday. He came on the Friday. The drip continued for another 3 weeks, but that is a different story. I gave 2 months' notice in writing, as required. I cleaned the flat from skirting boards to ceiling. 47 quid on cleaning supplies from the Ancoats B&Q, a receipt I also kept. I patched a minor scuff on the hallway wall with filler I matched to the paint. I arranged a checkout with Marcus for the last Saturday of my tenancy. He arrived 20 minutes late, walked through the flat in 6 minutes, made no specific complaints, and shook my hand. I took the train to Sheffield that afternoon to stay with my sister. I had a new job starting in 3 weeks. I was moving on. I felt genuinely fine. The letter arrived 9 days later. Marcus was withholding the entire deposit, nay, all £1,200. He cited extensive damage to the carpet in the bedroom, professional deep cleaning fees for the bathroom, a broken extractor fan above the hob, repainting costs for the hallway, and then at the bottom of the letter, a request, or rather a demand, for an additional £432 to cover the balance of what his receipts showed. Total claimed against me, £1,632. I sat at my sister's kitchen table and read it 3 times. Here is the question I want you to hold while I finish this story. If someone does this to you, if someone in a position of power decides to simply take your money and send you a bill on top of it, how far are you willing to go? Because what happened next required something I did not know I had. This is the pattern interrupt. I want to rewind for just a moment and tell you something I left out. Because what I said at the start, that he took £1,200 from me, is only half true. He tried. And the reason he failed starts with something he did 2 years before I even moved in. I did not know this yet. I was still at my sister's table reading his letter, trying not to shake. My first call was to Citizens Advice. They took me through the basics and referred me to a local housing solicitor. A woman named Priya, based in the Northern Quarter, who specialised in residential tenancy disputes. I called her on the Monday morning. Her voice was calm and exact, like someone who had been here before. She had. 300 times before, she told me. She said that before we could assess the merits of Marcus's claims, we needed to establish something more fundamental. One question, a single critical question. Where was my deposit? Under the Housing Act, 2004 and subsequent amendments, any landlord in England and Wales who takes a deposit from a residential tenant is legally required to protect it in a government-approved tenancy deposit protection scheme within 30 days of receiving it. There are 3 schemes: the Deposit Protection Service, My Deposits, the Tenancy Deposit Scheme. Marcus was required to use one of them to provide me with something called prescribed information, a formal document outlining the scheme details, and to do all of this within 30 days of my move-in date. Priya asked me to check my paperwork. I went through every document Marcus had ever given me. The tenancy agreement, the inventory, the gas safety certificate, the receipt for the deposit, but nowhere, not in a single page of that file, was there any mention of a tenancy deposit protection scheme. No scheme name, no registration number, no prescribed information, nothing. Priya's response to this was short. She said, "Good." Good. One word. I did not understand it yet, but she explained it to me, and by the time she finished, I understood exactly what Marcus had done and what it meant. A landlord who fails to protect a deposit within 30 days or fails to provide the prescribed information is in breach of statute. The consequences are specific. A county court can order the landlord to repay the deposit in full and to pay a penalty of between 1 and 3 times the deposit amount on top of it. Not a fine to the government, to the tenant, to me. We ran the checks. We searched all 3 schemes. My £1,200 had never been registered, not when I moved in, not at any point during my tenancy, not at any point at all. Marcus had held my deposit in his own account for 2 years and 11 months, used it as he liked, and simply never protected it. That is the delayed reveal. That is what I promised you. And now you understand why Priya said good. She filed a claim in the Manchester County Court. The claim had 2 elements. First, the return of the full deposit, £1,200, on the grounds that Marcus's deductions were unsubstantiated. His receipts were dated after I'd vacated. 2 of the contractors he cited had no registered business address, and the bedroom carpet, which I had photographed extensively on move-in day, showed identical wear in the checkout photographs Marcus himself had taken. Second, a penalty for the failure to protect the deposit. Priya argued for 3 times the deposit amount, £3,600 on top of the £1,200. Total claim, £4,800. Marcus responded through a solicitor of his own. The response was aggressive. It suggested I'd failed to maintain the property. It attached 23 photographs, most of which appeared to show a flat in significantly worse condition than the one I had left. Priya examined them for 11 minutes and called me. She said 3 of the photographs contained objects she could confirm were not present in my checkout photographs or the original inventory. A different shower curtain, a wall fixture that appeared in none of the pre-tenancy documents, a crack in a tile that was not visible in Marcus's own checkout shots taken from the same angle. The photographs were fabricated, or at the very minimum, they did not show my flat as I had left it. The hearing was a Tuesday in February. The court was a beige room on the 3rd floor of the Civil Justice Centre on Bridge Street. The heating in the corridor was too high, and the heating in the courtroom itself was not working. I wore my good coat and kept it on. My hands were cold. Priya sat beside me, a manila folder on the table in front of her. Her pen cap clicked exactly 3 times before the judge entered. I counted because I had nothing else to do with my attention. The judge's name was Patricia. She had grey hair and reading glasses on a cord around her neck. She examined the deposit protection search results, the confirmation from all 3 schemes that my deposit had never been registered, for approximately 45 seconds. She then looked at Marcus across the room. She did not say anything for a moment. Marcus had given no adequate explanation for the failure to protect. His solicitor argued that it was an administrative oversight. Patricia was not persuaded. The judgment was awarded in full. £1,200 deposit returned, 3 times the deposit in penalty, £3,600. The disputed additional claim of £432 dismissed entirely. Total in my favour, £4,800. I want to tell you something about Marcus because I think it matters. He was not some cartoonish villain. He was a man who'd been doing this for years, holding deposits, making deductions, sending letters that most tenants found too exhausting or too intimidating to challenge. He had built an assumption into his business model that people would not fight, that the £1,200 was simply cheaper to lose than the time and the stress of fighting for it. For most of his tenants, he was probably right. This was not malice, precisely. It was a calculation. And the calculation worked until it did not. That is what I think about when I think about him. Not a monster, a man who made a business decision and discovered too late that one of his tenants kept receipts. The folder in my desk drawer, the same one that held my deposit receipt. That is the detail I mentioned at the start, and here is its transformation. I had kept that folder because I am the kind of person who keeps things. I did not keep it because I expected to need it. I kept it because my dad told me once, when I was 17, that paper is power. He was talking about something else entirely, but he was right. Marcus paid the judgment within 28 days. £4,800 arrived in my account on a Thursday afternoon. I was at my desk in Sheffield. I checked my phone, saw the notification, and then sat there for a moment, not quite knowing what to do with the feeling. It was not triumph exactly. It was something quieter, something that felt more like being seen. Priya sent me a message that evening. 2 sentences. She said, "The deposit protection rules exist precisely for this situation, and that most landlords who break them do so because they have done it before without consequence." She said that filing the claim is how the consequence happens. I want to leave you with one question, and I want you to sit with it honestly. If Marcus had taken your £1,200, or if the letter had arrived at your table with its fabricated receipts and its additional bill, what would you have done? Because I almost did nothing. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time before I picked up the phone. And I wonder sometimes how many people never picked up the phone at all. How many folders full of receipts are sitting in drawers right now that nobody will ever open. What would you have done